to this session. Cool. So welcome to the Power BI for Enviro session. Power BI for Enviro's for July 2023. For those people that are new to the group, like especially welcome. Sort of mission or the things that we're looking to share through this forum is share case studies, so both about Power BI, but also generally data collection, data visualization for the environmental and the water, and in this example, the waste industries as well. Allow people in our community to learn new tips and tricks and really just empower Enviros on largely their Power BI journey, but also just in their day-to-day work, anything data related. Just a bit of housekeeping. I think we're all relatively familiar with the Teams sort of platform. I'll start this session with a small demo, and then we'll get Simon to have his session, which will take up the vast majority of today. There will be an opportunity for Q&A at the end, but if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to just write in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them, or we'll just sort of stockpile a bit of questions for the end of Simon's session. As a reminder, the session is being recorded. Hopefully everyone's got that notification, and will be shared through various platforms on the Meetup group. Acknowledgement of Country. So I'm dialing in from just out of Fremantle in Western Australia. So I'd like to acknowledge the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, the traditional owners of the greater Fremantle Walyallup area. Pay my respects to their elders, past and present. This photo I took a few weeks ago from the lovely Rottnest Island, or Whadjuk off the coast, about 20 k's off the coast of Perth. Especially important in regards to acknowledgement of country and paying respect to the traditional owners of this land. This week is NAIDOC week, so from the 2nd to the 9th of July, with this year's theme being the importance for our elders, or for the elders of the traditional owners. So in relation to knowledge sharing, highlighting the importance of culture and maintaining this sort of respect and understanding moving forward in relation to how we manage our land and waterways and sort of moving forward. So yeah, just take a bit of time to acknowledge NAIDOC week this week as well. Discovery Eye. So myself, Christian, and Alice, we're the co-founders of Discovery Eye. So we work largely with Power BI, data management, data reporting solutions for the environmental and the water industries. Simon, our guest presenter, and I actually used to work together for one of the same consultancies back in Perth many years ago. So this is the sort of we Discovery Eye put on these meetup events as a sponsor, and this is some of the stuff that we work in. So I'll just pause at this point. So this is the session details that sort of highlighted through the meetup event. But before I allow Simon to get stuck into his session, I just wanted to take a quick opportunity to run through a bit of highlight some of the Power BI features from the most recent June release that we had. And just do a short demo, real short, simple demo on the new card visual, which created a lot of hype after the sort of latest release was made available. So for those people that haven't seen it, you can always just go into the Power BI blog. We have monthly updates in relation to Power BI, and in the latest month, which was released about 2 weeks ago, there are a few nice features. So the new card visual, which I'll jump into in a little bit more detail soon. We have this One Lake Data Hub. So that's really just a name change in relation to what a lot of people, you're probably aware, the Microsoft Fabric announcement, and how data is going to be managed through One Lake in this new sort of platform or new sort of area. Some additional updates to the on-object interactions, but still in preview. Some other ones here that you might have had an opportunity to play with or might be of interest. The storytelling in PowerPoint. So we have continued integration between Power BI and PowerPoint, really useful for stakeholder presentations, sort of embedding live reports, and also in this example, live tiles into our PowerPoints from Power BI. You can also start editing your data model in the Power BI service, which is another new feature at the moment. For Power BI admins from your organizations, there's some new out-of-the-box reports that are created on the service for admin monitoring. So I'd encourage you to have a bit of a look at that. Just clicking through to it, I think there's 2. I had a bit of a play around with it the other day. But yeah, encourage you to have a bit of a play around with that. Might give you a bit more visibility as to both the use or engagement and usage that people are having with Power BI reports, but then also other elements as well to help with sort of building out Power BI within your organizations. There's a few other features here with Power BI embedded, stuff for the developers and a few more visuals. But as I flagged at the start, I really just wanted to touch on quickly this new Power BI card visual and explain just some of the reasons why I see it being quite useful. So it's within the June update. You can get a bit of information on it. They've also released, the Power BI Times also released a sort of standalone blog the day before about the new card visual features, how to set it up, and things like that. And I just wanted to take a bit of a chance to show you what that looks like in practice. So this is just a demo Power BI report we do as part of our training in the environmental sort of area. But what I've got here is three standalone cards. So you can see we've got our card visual up here. So average health rating across our different catchments, count of catchments across our entire system, and count of sites or count of gauges that we have. So the new card visual allows us to, rather than have three individual visuals, it allows us to actually combine all of these and have a whole range of new, really, really nice formatting options. So if you've opened up your Power BI, you're in your June version, what you'll want to do is you want to go and turn it on as a preview feature. So you go File, Options and Settings, go into your options, give it a chance to come up, go down into our preview features, and then right down the bottom here, you got to tick on this new card visual. Once that's on, probably need to restart your Power BI and then jump back in. And it's this little one here, classic name, card in brackets new. So you can see it, it's got the little lightning bolt, but it looks very similar to the original card visual at this point down here. So with nothing selected, if I want to turn that one on, and let's just have a bit of a play around with it and see what we can do to try and semi-recreate what we've got with these three individual visuals. So if I have a click, I can see what my different fields are that I've dragged in. So I've got this average health rating that I've brought in. I've also got the catchments here. So I want to bring that in. As a text-based field, it defaults to first, but I actually want to show the count of the catchments that I have. And the last one that I got is the gauge IDs, which is equivalent to the sites that we have. So immediately you can see we can now bring in three of those fields all into one visual. And we've automatically been able to sort of recreate what we're seeing in the three individual card visuals up here. So just do a bit of renaming quickly and we can see it there. But why people are really liking this is a lot of the formatting options that we have that we previously never really had across these. And also it makes it a lot easier when we're adding new metrics into our report and we have to add new cards. Having it all in one visual allows it a lot easier to resize what this almost card pane looks like. A little bit like in recent updates, we had the bookmark navigator become available. That made it a lot easier for setting up different bookmarks for page navigation, for showing and hiding different visuals. So with this new visual selected, under the formatting option, there's a range of different things that we can do. So one of the things that people are liking is this option for rounding different corners. So under the visual shape, I can go rounded rectangle. You can see it automatically does a bit of rounding, but we can customize this style to maybe have like nice features for just the top left and the top right, and allow us to do a little bit more like work in terms of styling these individual cards. Another feature that people are looking at a bit is how to address some of the call out elements. So naturally we have our usual sort of font, font types, font changes, or text sizing. We can set up text wrapping on both the values and also the labels that we have as well. For showing it, displaying it based on how we want to resize our card setup. And you can also change the labeling to make it either above the value or below the value if I want to sort of recreate this similar experience that we had up here. But one of the biggest things that we have in terms of updates or benefits of this new card visual is the ability to bring in images. So I'll just add just a simple fill across the board. You can also change these individually. So here I'm updating to all of the series. But if I wanted to say just do average health rating and change the fill, so to speak, on that, we can do it, individually if we really want. But applying it to all, if I want to work my way through it, I touched on these images. So previously with the images, it just required a lot more elements and a lot more features and having to layer. But now you can either bring images in as the background or also dynamically as well. So we have two options for the image type. For this one, I'm just going to choose, I want a background image that sort of represents what's going on in the study at a really, really high level. I've got these little water drop icons, just a small PNG. I can sort of apply that. I can do a lot of work to it in terms of changing the padding, but also maybe the size, so I can do some positioning work. And it really gives you a lot of flexibility with how you might want to set up each of these individual features. Similarly, we can also make them dynamic. If we've got a link out to an image URL, you can choose your image URL, and then as always, we have the sort of conditional formatting option to make it dynamic. It's got a little internal memory, so it now picks up, if I change it back to an image, it picks up that I previously have brought in that little image as well. And the other just small feature still within the cards is, I don't know, I like design stuff, so to some people maybe this isn't necessarily important, but I don't know, I think like this little accent bar just gives it a little bit of separation between the different card elements and allows us to make it look slightly cleaner in terms of the information that we're presenting, working through. So that was just in a nutshell, like new card visual and some of the cool formatting you can do with it, and just how some of the benefits that I've seen in terms of making it easier for creating card visuals and showing our key metrics. There's also a lot more in terms of titles, subtitles, dividers, and I've seen some nice work there. But for anyone that's interested in design, like Power BI design work, I'd recommend following one of the best in Power BI design is Armin van Amersfoort. He recently put out a little blog post about a week ago on highlighting some of the flexibility that this new card visual provides, and a little demo or a little picture. So in this example here, he's using the vertical card display. He's using that titles, subtitles, and dividers that I flagged before, just to get that real nice clean experience, but then also be able to provide instructions to the users or additional context as to what is being shown here in the cards. He's using a bit of shadow line, obviously the images as well. In this example, he's got them as base 64, so he's encoded those images from his data set, but like I showed, there's multiple different ways that you can bring in those images too. So I thought this was quite a nice example, worth showing in relation, that really highlights some of the power of this new card visual. Hopefully in regards to Q&A at the end of this session, if anyone's got some really nice experiences or identified any bugs in the new card visual, given it is still in preview, we can discuss that as well. But yeah, just wanted to take the time to highlight that one. But onto why I trust people have come involved for this session today. What we're looking at is going paperless in the waste industry. So from data collection apps into Power BI. So today we'll hear from Simon Lunn, who works across the waste industry. Simon's learnt from his traditional methods of waste reporting, which often lacks transparency, can be difficult to audit and verify because it's largely been very paper-based. This led to the creation of Traste, a digital app solution to help track waste differently and bringing these systems and processes into the modern age. So today we'll look at the waste collection app, the workflow which feeds into a Power BI report, and then delivery of the report to these different clients. Simon's already flagged there's a little surprise or something at the end, Simon, which will be great as well. But yeah, just a bit of background on our speaker. So Simon's a specialist in waste audits and compliance for the Green Star rating system across the construction industry. He's a degree in environmental science, a master's in sustainability, and over 5 years experience working in the contaminated land assessment area. So without further ado, Simon, I'll stop sharing, mate, and hand it over to you for the main part of the session. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Christian. You can hear me all right?
Yeah, it's coming through loud and clear.
Thanks. All right, well, thanks to everyone for giving up or combining your lunch with this webinar. Hopefully it can bring a bit of value to it. So yeah, introduction's done. Christian covered everything off, thank you. So just getting here, what I'm going to talk about is the app that I've developed, which is called Traste, and its main goal is to help track different construction waste material. So I just want to talk about data firstly, assuming that you're all pretty interested in it, being here in this webinar. So that's a good thing. I don't know if you've heard this quote before, but in 2017, data overtook oil and gas as the world's most valuable resource. So there's a little fact, but capturing this data has its challenges, particularly in the waste industry. Traditionally, they've been just set up to set and forget the materials, and not many people have asked too many questions. But with sustainability becoming more of an issue across all different aspects of business, we're looking closer at this, and people who generate waste and deal with the waste are also asking more questions. So in relation of what I'm talking about is building developers and construction. So we're looking at construction waste, and people who are responsible for buildings are starting to become aware that this is more of an issue. It should be recycled better, and they're starting to undertake more green ratings for their buildings. So the most common building rating in Australia is the Green Star rating. So that looks at a whole bunch of different aspects of a construction. So it looks at how the building's been built from an energy perspective, from water conservation. It also looks into whether the waste has been managed responsibly. So using companies that are choosing to get Green Star rated are showing they have much higher recycling rates than a typical average build. And one of the main reasons for this is the accountability. So people have to follow that waste from Green Star building sites and verify that it's been recycled in the right way. And with a background in auditing, that's what we used to do. We used to go out to the waste facilities and check they were recycling properly. Now, as you can imagine, this is not easy. It was not easy to verify how all the waste is getting recycled and what all the reports are saying, mainly because this is kind of like your typical bin coming off a construction site, and I'd say more than 90% of bins are coming off as mixed loads. So they have to be taken off the building site, sent to a sorting facility, and basically they have to get, if you think of it as like unscrambling an egg, you've got to then split all the different materials. At the same time as these facilities are trying to do their job, which is to sort the timber into different piles to send that for recycling, they're also now having to report on those different materials. And that's sort of where they were kind of struggling. So just to give you an overview, the waste load comes into a facility. It's dumped on at the yard floor as manually sorted. And in terms of how they report and record the information, they're typically observing at the time that they tip it, and they have a form to fill out, or at least they had in a lot of places we went to. That form was then taken into the office where it was given to someone in admin who would manually enter that data into usually a spreadsheet, and then at the end of each month they would generate reports. Now we're talking about quite large facilities, and they could have 30, 40, 50 or more loads coming in every day. So not all of those are Green Star jobs, but at least some of them are, and they had this paper trail that they had to keep track of. So essentially we'd come in as auditors and find they were losing their dockets, losing their paperwork. The reports weren't really accurate, and it was very hard to verify that their recycling rates were actually correct, and we couldn't pass those audits. So it it was really a tricky situation as auditors. We were just finding sort of kind of mess everywhere, and it wasn't good for them. They didn't pass the audits, and it wasn't good for us either. So really, we had discussions, and we said that there need to be a better way, and that there's probably nothing easier these days than capturing and collecting data with an app. So that's what we came up with. So yeah, basically built an app myself, which they could log into. So this would be someone out on the yard floor who, when a waste load comes in, they'd log in, open their app, and then they'd put in the date and some of the reference details that we needed, and then putting in the weight of the load and where it came from, and then they would do their estimate on their phone. So it's a much quicker process to just enter it on their phone. And from there, the data goes straight up into the cloud, and as a third party reviewing that data and then providing monthly reports. Now, it also helps from an auditor's perspective. Auditors are able to come in and verify each load, and they have a photo of the docket. So that's kind of the process, but what I guess you guys might be interested in how I did it. So like I said, we got to that point where they weren't passing audits. It wasn't working for either of us. And we sort of started brainstorming some ideas, asking, can you guys get a laptop into the yard? Can you use an iPad with potentially having Excel on it? Yeah, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of different things happening on the recycling yard floor. So having this sort of scientist mindset that I did with a laptop out there, I thought that possibly would work, but no, they really need something simple. So ultimately they needed an app, and I actually ran down the path of trying to get one built with a software developer, threw out $3,000 on it, and a couple of weeks later that was basically not even there was no outcome coming from that. And essentially I realized to build a decent app you need probably about $100,000, or at least that was my estimate, and it was far too much. So I went back to Google again. This whole process of what can we do took several months, and all of a sudden the easiest solution came right in front of me, which was sitting right there. There's a bunch of different softwares available now that you can log in and build your own apps, and you don't need any coding or background experience. So that's sort of how I landed on it. I started building the app, and now I'll just go through and talk about that. So yeah, like I said, you can jump on and look at different no-code app building websites, but the one that I use nowadays is Glide. So you log into the Glide platform, create a new project, and essentially start building your app. So the components here on the left, this is a welcome page. So that user will just log in there, and then they'll get sent to the home page. And from here you can click new report, upload a photo of the docket, select the site, select the bin size, next, confirm the details. And from here they can go through and do their estimates just straight on the phone. And also the good thing about having it digital is they can see a running total. So they can see now they have 85%. Okay, they need a little bit more to get to 100%. And I suppose when you're doing it on paper, it's just those small maths. Yeah, it's not that hard to get to 100%, but still having it all changeable is I suppose pretty convenient. So they'll just punch that information into the app, press save, and away it goes to the databases. And that's potentially where you guys are all relatively familiar. So once we have our data available in this sort of format, then we can start connecting to Power BI and start doing our visuals. So a couple of things to note around what I was trying to do when I was building this visual. The feedback from the waste contractors was really they didn't want anything too fancy. They weren't bothered about having, I guess most of you guys in this session know you can connect to this and have it available as a live sort of data set. But that wasn't really their priority at all. Essentially, all they wanted was a report at the end of the month, which just summarized the information. So, and also they were very familiar with the Excel, so they kind of wanted something that looked similar. So I've done some pretty basic tables here showing the different material types, just summarizing per month, and then we have a recycling rate down the bottom. And so far, that's kind of all they really need. Plus, there's a last page at the back which shows you each individual load, shows you the bin size and also the weight and a split of the summary. So pretty straightforward stuff in that regard. Yeah, like I said, that was kind of their preference. They wanted just a simple design and a monthly report. So yes, this little project grew. I started in 2020 and with one client, and bit by bit, without doing too much sale or anything, another waste company came and said, oh, that seems like a good idea. So these days I'm working with 5 different companies, and that means I'm having to go and generate a lot of monthly reports. So each site, this for example is one site, each site will need 1 report per month, and now we're up over 40 or 50 sites per month that I have to generate reports for. So to do that, we can you can go export to PDF, and you'll get that Power BI format as a PDF. Whether it'll come up now, yeah, and it has. So yeah, always thinking forward about efficiency. This sort of clicking and doing that like 40 or 50 times, it's a bit boring and mundane. So Christian, if you're still following, this is where I got to the little bit which I hadn't told you about. Yeah, and so I got in touch with a team of Power BI team, and they also do software development. I said, guys, can you automate the process for me? Can you make it so that I don't have to click however many times? So for the next site, I would then have to go next site. So it all gets updated, next site, and so on and so forth. And they said, oh, maybe leave it with us. And that was only a couple of weeks ago, but they came back to me with a script or a code, which I'll open now. And essentially it does that. It runs through. So this is not familiar at all to me, but those guys have done a good job, and I'll just show you what it does. So if I hit Shift Enter on this, it will open Power BI on the web browser, and it's actually sort of controlling the mouse in a way. It sort of goes through a series of click styles. So if you watch site list, it should change fairly soon. There's a delay. So site list is now been cleared, and my mouse is sort of over here. So that's all happening in the background. They're going through and clicking, and that's sort of the code I wanted to show you about. So yeah, I haven't really used it yet. Actually, this is just the demo, but I'm hoping for this month's reporting, which is pretty much going to start after this week. Yeah, they're going to click export, and so the code is essentially running all this. So yeah, just sort of throw that one in there and just show you that yeah, managed to code myself out of some clicks, which is always good. So yeah, that'll just so I've ran it a few times now, and those reports just get saved into the downloads folder at the moment. And yeah, there they are. So I'm hoping that this code will run well, and I'll end up with 40 or 50 reports in this folder, and then I can also run a script to rename them. All right, thanks. That's pretty much it. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks very much, Simon. That was excellent. And mate, that way to automate it at the end, there was a lot of, I don't know if you saw, there was a lot of lot of nice responses and people, doing the little clap hands emoji and stuff. That naturally saves you a lot of time, I suppose. Did
Yeah.
when you mentioned sort of when you were about to introduce the automation component, I thought you were going to say like maybe a Power Automate element, but so just a Python script able to sort of run and allows you to just automate all the clicking that you would normally be doing manually. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I literally don't know anything about coding. Well, I shouldn't say anything. I know a little bit, but
Yeah.
for example, here's in green. I think it describes what the function is. So it says define click.
Yep.
So you say click, and then you'll direct it to where it should click, and then you have this thing called sleep. So it waits 5 seconds just in case there's delays in your web browser or something. There's the link, report link. Yeah. So if I ever need to change it, I'm definitely tied to that guy who built it for me.
Yeah.
That's the sort of challenges with no code type of work, is that
Yeah.
you are limited by what the platforms can do, and when it does, ultimately you end up wanting to do things more customized, and you do need to code.
Yep.
But yeah, it's been I'd say it's been a very achievable kind of process to go through, to sort of teach yourself, and those sort of no code apps have sort of taken off in the last 4 or 5 years, really. With only a couple of players 5 or 6 years ago, now you sort of have 10 plus on the market, these type of ones here. So they all do slightly different things. Power apps,
Yeah. No,
Bubble.
mate, that's a good point. And actually, just while you've got that slide up, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but this is actually one question that Peter has asked, and I was also interested as well. So, in terms of pros and cons of, say, Glide versus Power Apps, or doing your feasibility assessment on these different apps, how did you go about that? And did you trial all of these different options, or yeah?
Yeah, good question. I started with NAIDOC in the bottom right. That one has a very good relational database setup. So for me, I needed to link the waste densities with the site lists, and I had different lists that I needed to link together in my app, and NAIDOC is really good for that. If you sort of link them together, as soon as you change one, it'll all transfer its way through. So that might be a bit too much detail for some people, but essentially NAIDOC is really good with data, but the user interface was quite poor, and also their pricing model, you had to pay per user.
Yep.
So it worked when I had my first 2 or 3 clients, but then when I jumped up to sort of some people needed sort of like 5 or 6 drivers needed to log on, I wasn't going to pay a $250 per user. So then I swapped over to Glide, which has a much better user interface, which you can see here.
It's very clean.
Yeah, it's a really good user interface, but the databases aren't quite relational to each other. They are in a sense, but it's not as easy. And so the database source is Google Sheets with Glide, whereas NAIDOC has keeps all its data internal.
Yep.
Glide can do that as well, but basically in short, Glide, it's a bit more difficult with the data management things, but the user interface is great. Power Apps, I've heard a lot about Power Apps, and I haven't actually got around to using it. I'm not sure if you need some sort of Microsoft account for it. It just seems to be that I haven't managed to get into there every time I've tried. And then Adalo is, again, actually probably one of the leading ones for user interface. So I think people who work in service industries like restaurants, or if you want to do an Uber type app or a really nice designed app, I think you want Adalo. And then Bubble is actually more for so computer systems. So if you don't want to use a mobile feature, you just want to build a whatever might be, but it's based on your computer, maybe an invoicing style system, or something like that. Bubble is one of the high recommended ones in that space. So they all play a little bit differently. And yeah, how do I use them? I've tried. I tried little bits of different ones here and there. But yeah, I think to get up to speed with any one of them, it's actually, even though it's no code, it's probably going to take like 20, 10 to 20 hours of research and tutorials to get really quite good at any one of these. But I think within 1 to 2 or 3 hours, you can sort of get something usable out of it.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's great.
So 20 hours,
And
20 to 30 hours of my time to build an app versus paying someone $100,000. Yeah, the maths
makes
work
sense.
on that.
Yeah. So you're using Glide. Glide saves data up into Google Sheets, and from there you're making the connection to Power BI. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I think no, it's good. I mean, obviously it's a good workflow. Now you've got that little automation component at the end, which allows you for more streamlined reporting. Just a few more questions, Simon, that are in the chat. So in relation, I guess Pat Booth's asked, has Power BI paginated reports been considered to generate these Power BI reports based on like sites as parameters? Is paginated reports, did you come across those at all in relation to Power BI?
No, I haven't.
No? Yeah.
So I might look.
I can talk to that one a little bit more. So it's based on a Power BI premium license, or I think even Pat, if you're still on, jump in if you know more about paginated reports than me, which you probably do. But premium per user license as well, and allows you to code up the different parameters and how those reports are going to be written automatically coming out. So Pat's just written, and so you can do it with the Power BI Pro license now as well.
I remember now. The guys who built the code for me said I could get that option, but I think they said it was going to cost like $1,000 or $1,500 for a Pro license or something. I don't know if that's the case.
Pro license isn't that much. It's only roughly $15 per user per month. But
maybe they conned me so that they could do
no, this is where you've touched on licensing with another one of those apps before. There is that licensing is something you definitely have to consider. I know Power BI premium license is considerably more, and maybe that's what they were thinking in terms of those multiple $1,000s per month element. But yeah, no, apparently it's been extended now into Pro, and I think a few people are writing comments in there as well in relation to Power Apps development plan and also the PPU as well. So for those people on the call, if you deal with licensing, whether it's sort of Power Apps, Power Platform, Power BI, or any other sort of tool, that if there are changes like that, you just need to make considerations to those in terms of how you're applying these different tools. But yeah, it's a good point. Pranam asked, are you planning to run the Python script manually every month, or are you planning to run this automatically on a schedule as well?
Yeah, so just one step at a time. I'll just run manually. I've still got to do a lot of checks on it. Verify each report looks okay. So for me, it's just a manual process still.
Yep, that's fine. And you mentioned before, obviously, in terms of final deliverables, your clients are asking for these portrait-based PDF reports. They then, I presume, send them on to EPAs. Is that the way the EPA and the regulators are still asking for this information as hard copy documents?
Yeah, so it's actually a voluntary system, so they don't have to report these to EPA. They're just bringing it back to this Green Star rating. So basically, to get that Green Star rating approved from a waste perspective, they need one monthly report for the duration of the project. So if it goes for 2 years, they'll need 24 of these monthly reports plus a summary at the end. So these reports will be sent to the different building companies, and they'll have to just keep those and compile those.
Okay.
So
cool. I have a few more questions, but just want to take a chance. If there was anyone, feel free. If you wanted, come off mute. If you have any questions directly for Simon, Otherwise, I'll keep going. I've got a few. This is a great workflow, Simon. It's very, very interesting. So thanks very much for sharing. All the modern sort of stuff and the big hype is ChatGPT, AI. Have you thought, or do you know if any of these apps are starting to build in functionality where you can take photos and train these apps as to artificial intelligence to tell you maybe percentages of what these things are?
Yeah, well, actually, all right. I'll take that in two ways. Firstly, to use AI to tell you how the percentages are, you can use Power Apps, and you can actually, I haven't done this, but I've heard of it. They are using images of recycling waste in councils. So your yellow bin, they're getting that, an image of that as it's tipped. And if they see plastic garbage bags, you know, from under your sink, like a white plastic bag, the AI model they have will run a script, you know, it'll basically be able to tell you that there's contamination in that bin. So Power Apps has the ability to analyze photos and look for features. So potentially it has the ability to categorize the construction waste through just a photo, but I'm nowhere near that level. But I know that that's been done, and I don't think you could do it for Glide. But yeah, like I said, Power Apps, it does have a feature where you can look at sort of automatically categorizing things through photos. The second part about ChatGPT, Glide does have integrations actually. I wonder if I can get it up now. So if we add an action, yeah, so here it is here. So you've got integrations in Glide apps. So Google Calendar, for example, you could link a button in this app to say create a calendar, add calendar event. Gmail, you could, I haven't done any of this, but I'm assuming you could just click a button to say send email from your app. And there should be one for, there it is, ChatGPT. So you can have a button in your app that connects through to ChatGPT and answer a question. I saw a guy build a cooking app through Glide, and he sort of, I think it was something like, suggest a recipe using key ingredients, and it'll get ChatGPT to do it all for you. So yeah, it does connect with ChatGPT, which is pretty cool.
Very cool.
And yeah, these integrations are fairly recent. I'd say within the last year. Well, obviously ChatGPT hasn't been around for that long, or at least I haven't known about it. So yeah, you can integrate all that sort of stuff in there. So while I said before there are limitations with no code, they're also getting better and better at what you are able to integrate with and stuff like that. So
yeah, fantastic. That's great to know. It's sort of obviously moving in that direction. Excellent.
yeah.
One more from me is I know, like with Power BI reports, in designing them, generally sort of, you know, you're trying to design them for digital display, so it's used electronically. Were there any challenges in designing these Power BI reports for printing purposes, or was it relatively straightforward in your experiences?
Oh, it was setting it up to the A4 page style, and funnily enough, my expertise is not in Power BI, so I actually got someone else to do set it up as A4 page. But yeah, from my perspective, it looks okay. I've just noticed now this is the one that is generated automatically through the script, and I could just see some formatting issues at the top there, as opposed to the one that is you can do off Power BI desktop. It's cleaner on the edges. So there's some issues, some small issues there, but basically just putting it in the A4 style was all I had to do. So nothing too complicated.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, the only reason I ask is because we've had similar sort of requests before, and the considerations that you do have to make, and like you've just said, for your report style, it seems that it's all covered. But things like if you have many rows in, say, your matrix or tables, obviously if you've got scroll bars, that doesn't work if you're printing. As well, if you're doing report page tooltips, which are on mouse hover sort of little pop-ups, that again, printing doesn't really work. And just a few of those different features. But like you've just flagged, the report looks really nice and clean, and the design obviously makes sense with the printing, and especially if that's what the clients are after. Awesome, mate. Look, today yeah, for everyone on the call today, was always going to be just a bit of a shorter session. So if you wanted to stop sharing, Simon, I'll just pull my screen up just to sort of close out in this session, and then I'll stop the recording, and there's an opportunity. I'm happy to hang on the line for another 5-10. Simon, I'm not sure if you are as well, if there are any questions or just a general conversation as well. But yeah, let me just pull up. That was really good, mate. And really, really nice job. Great workflow. Like I said, at the end of your session, there are a lot of people sort of, giving the thumbs up and claps, and we really appreciate you taking the time to put that together and sharing your experiences. So thanks very much. And thanks everyone for dialing in as well. So yeah, as we said, we just covered off on the really interesting session by Simon in relation to data collection apps and obviously reporting for the waste industry. As usual, we run these sessions obviously every month. We've recorded it, and it'll be available on our blogs and our YouTube channels as well. We do have a few really interesting sessions already set up for later in the year. They're not on the meetup page yet. I'll put them up shortly. We're just finalizing a few individual details. But if anyone is interested in presenting, whether it's sort of, novice, beginner level, you're just getting started in Power BI or some sort of tech, just like Simon presented here on Glide, or you've got, a bit more of an advanced use case or things you would like to share, more than happy, please reach out, and it'd be great to understand what people are working on across the environmental, water, and waste industries. It's always interesting to hear other people's experiences and case studies in this area. And yeah, thank you again for dialing in to this July 23 meetup, and yeah, biggest thank you to Simon, our presenter today. So with that, I'll stop sharing. I'll stop the recording as well, and then yeah, feel free to come off mute, put your camera on if anyone wants to have a bit of a chat. I'll stay on for another 5 or so. But yeah, thanks very much, everyone. Sweet, just stop.